Alberta government presents Driver's Guide to Operation, Safety, and Licensing, Cars and Light Trucks. Chapter 2, Part 2. Other signs. Slow-moving vehicle. A slow-moving vehicle sign is placed on the back of vehicles that travel less than 40 kilometers per hour, such as farm tractors, machinery, or construction equipment. This sign warns drivers to be prepared to reduce their speed. Image description. A red triangle with a smaller orange triangle within. End image description. Oversized loads. This sign indicates a wide load is being transported. Use caution when passing vehicles displaying this sign. Image descriptions. A rectangle with red and white stripes and the white letter D in the center. Below it, a yellow rectangle with a black border with the black lettering Wide Load and ID. Construction. The speed limit in construction zones must be obeyed at all times. This applies even when people and equipment are not working, since hazards like bumps, fresh oil, and loose gravel may be present. If workers are present, the fines in these areas will be doubled. Obey the flag person's signal. Be prepared to slow down and stop if required. The following are some of the warning signs about road construction. Image description. An orange diamond-shaped sign with the black silhouette of a person using a shovel. End ID. People working. Image description. An orange diamond sign with a black silhouette of a person holding a flag. End ID. Flag person. Image description. An orange diamond with the black silhouette of a person bending down over a device. End ID. Survey crew ahead. Image description. An orange diamond with the silhouette of a vehicle and uneven ground, which creates a tilt in the vehicle. End ID. Uneven pavement. ID. An orange rectangle with the black lettering Detour, next 8 kilometers. End ID. Detour next blank kilometers. Image description. An orange rectangle with the black lettering End construction. End ID. Construction zone ends. Pavement markings. Markings on the roadway can provide the following information: lane identification separating opposing traffic, traffic movement in the same direction, traffic movement in the opposite direction, passing zones and no passing zones, lane use and designation, pedestrian crosswalks, stop lines, parking areas, word or symbol messages. In some cases, pavement markings are used along with other traffic control signals or signs. Lane markings. Lane markings can be yellow or white, single or double, solid or broken. These lines provide important information about the direction of the traffic flow, lane changing, lane restrictions, and passing. Solid line markings. Solid lines mean that crossing the solid line to pass or change lanes is not permitted. Broken line markings. Broken lines mean that crossing the broken line to pass or change lanes is permitted. Yellow line markings. Yellow lines mean that vehicles on each side of the yellow line must travel in opposite directions. A yellow line should always be on the driver's left side. Image description. A gray rectangle symbolizing a road. In the center, there is a dotted yellow line. Above the dotted yellow line is the black lettering direction with an arrow pointing left. Below the dotted line is the black lettering direction with an arrow pointing right. End ID. Image description. A gray rectangle symbolizing a road with two solid yellow lines. Above the two solid lines is the black arrow going left and the black lettering direction. below the two solid yellow lines is the black lettering saying direction and an arrow pointing right, and ID. Solid yellow lines, single or double, indicate that passing is not permitted. Broken yellow lines indicate that passing is permitted. Be sure that the lane is clear and the pass can be completed safely. Image description. A gray rectangle symbolizing a road with both a broken yellow dotted line and a solid yellow dotted line. Above the broken yellow line is the black lettering direction with an arrow pointing left, and below the solid yellow line is the black lettering direction with an arrow pointing right, and ID. A solid yellow line and a broken yellow line together indicate that a pass is permitted for the driver who has the broken line on their side of the roadway. Passing is not permitted for the driver with the solid yellow line on their side of the roadway. White line markings. White lines mean that vehicles on each side of the white line are traveling in the same direction. Image description. A gray rectangle symbolizing a road. On the left side of the road, there is a solid white line, but on the right side of the road, it becomes a broken white line. Both above and below the white line are the words direction and arrows pointing to the right, and ID. ID. A gray rectangle symbolizing a road. There is a solid white line through the middle. Above and below this white line are the words direction and arrows pointing to the right, and ID. Solid white lines indicate that lane changing is not permitted. ID. A gray rectangle signifying a road with a broken white line down the middle. Above and below the dotted white line are the words direction and arrows pointing to the right, and ID. Broken white lines indicate that lane changing is permitted. Symbols. Symbols may be used on the pavement to supplement standard signs or by themselves, to warn drivers, or to regulate or guide traffic. These markings include arrows. Arrows indicate the vehicle movements permitted in a lane. Image description. An intersection. One lane in the middle has an arrow going straight, then turning, and on the other side of this lane, there is an arrow going straight and then turning the other direction. End image description. On a one-way left turn lane, the center lane of the road is shared and reserved for left-turning traffic traveling in either direction. These lanes are commonly known as suicide lanes. Diamond markings. Diamond markings indicate that a lane is reserved for specific vehicles. There may also be signs that will indicate time or vehicle restrictions. Image description. A gray rectangle symbolizing a road with a white outline of a diamond on it, and ID. ID. A white sign with a black square in the top left corner with a white outline of a diamond in it. To the right of this are a bus and a taxi. The text reads 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock, 16 o'clock to 18 o'clock, Monday to Friday. At the base of this sign is a black arrow pointing down. End ID. Shared use lanes. ID. A yellow diamond with a black outline. At the top of this diamond is a black arrow pointing up. In the center of the diamond, there are two images. On the left is a black square with the white outline of a diamond. On the right is a white square with the black outline of a bicycle. End ID. Reserved bicycle lane ahead. Bicycle lanes are painted in the curb lane of the road with bicycle-shaped stencils and street signage. Bicycle lanes can also be positioned beside a row of parking spots. Vehicles are not allowed to drive in the bicycle lanes except when needing to turn, or enter or exit a parking spot. The bicycle lane paint line is usually dashed near the corners to indicate that it is permitted to enter the bicycle lane to turn right. Be careful and watch for bicycles when entering a bicycle lane when turning. ID. The gray stenciling of a bicycle and a diamond. End ID. Bicycle lane markings. This lane is reserved for cyclists. It is separated from traffic and parking by solid white lines and is marked with an image of a bicycle and a diamond. ID. The gray stencil of two bent lines pointing up, and below it, the gray stencil of a bicycle. End ID. The image of a bicycle capped by a pair of arrows guides cyclists and reminds drivers to expect cyclists in the same travel lane. X markings. X markings on rural highways indicate the approach to a railway crossing. An advanced warning sign will also indicate the approach to a railway crossing. Image description. A gray rectangle symbolizing a road going vertical. Horizontally across it is a depiction of railway tracks. In the center, there is a yellow dotted and a yellow broken line. On the right side of the yellow line is a white X painted on the road. Further down, there is a sign. This sign is a yellow diamond, and it symbolizes railway crossing ahead. End ID. Painted Island. Painted islands indicate that this area is not to be used for travel by any road users. Motorists can cross painted islands for the purpose of entering or leaving a driveway, alleyway, or private drive. Image description. A gray rectangle symbolizing pavement. There is an oblong shape with yellow coloring and diagonal yellow lines going across it. End ID. Do not park or stop in this area. Other roadway markings. Crosswalks. Crosswalk lines mark pedestrian crosswalks. Crosswalks also exist at intersections, even when they are unmarked, unless a sign indicates no crossing. Stop lines indicate where vehicles must stop at intersections or railway crossings. Image descriptions. An intersection in gray. As one road turns into the intersection, there is a series of white lines indicating a crosswalk. Adjacent to this crosswalk is a white bar labeled stop line. Next image. A gray depiction of an intersection. Across one road going into the intersection are two white lines symbolizing a crosswalk. End image descriptions. Drivers should not stop in a no stopping zone because they may interfere with other vehicles that are turning from one roadway to another. This is usually where large vehicles need extra room to turn. ID. A gray depiction of an intersection. There is a crosswalk. Below this crosswalk is a white stenciled square with an X going through it, labeled No Stopping Zone. This ends Chapter 2, Part 2 of the Alberta Driver's Guide.